The role of Indian Muslims or the Indian army in general is really underrated. This army had less than 200,000 people, and they will expand to over 2.5 million people. Most of them are volunteers, making this the largest volunteer army in history. The British had a great need for an Indian army. The first reason is that even though the British and the Soviet Union were technically allies for this war, there was still a lot of Russophobia, where they were worried about the Russians. And as we will see in the Cold War, this worry is going to continue down the road. The second thing is that there were many fronts in the Middle East, mainly Egypt and Libya, but even all the way down to like Palestine and North Africa, where the British Indian Army was needed. The third reason we'll talk a little bit more about in the next slide is that locally within India, this was a very sensitive time. This is a time where, in just a few years in 1947, we're going to have the formation of Pakistan and India and the exit of the British Raj. So, around this time, there is a lot of unrest locally, uh, and these soldiers are being used to calm and bring a level of control to this unrest. Um, the fourth reason is that the British Indian Army is going to be used to fight the Japanese in the southeast. We see that there are going to be some major battles in Burma specifically. And the last reason is that there's going to be some fronts where the British Indian Army is going to engage against the Germans themselves. So this is the main area where I saw in the sources that they were explicitly talking about the difference between Muslims and Hindus and Sikhs, for example. It's really important to understand the political climate of this time because this is going to be a major effort. Before the war, the army only has 200,000 people, and the numbers need to be increased greatly till the end, where we see there's about 2.5 million soldiers who are volunteering to fight for this army. What's happening right now politically is that in just a few years, the British Raj is going to exit, and we're going to have the formation of Pakistan and India. And as a precursor to this movement, you can imagine that there's already a lot of unrest that's happening. The biggest party, the biggest group, the biggest movement is the party of Gandhi, that's known as the Indian National Congress. This movement has decided at this time that we're not going to cooperate with the British and we're going to actually resist the British. And they've started the Quit India movement. And this war effort opened the door then for many of the minority movements to go and seek favor from the British. Um, and that's where we can introduce Qaid Azam, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who is now known as the founder of Pakistan. He has a radically different idea about what does the post-British India look like as compared to Gandhi, for example. His idea is that we need to have two different countries. We need to have a country for the Muslims, and we need to have a country for uh, everybody else, pretty much. So he uses World War II as a way to seek favor from the British Raj. And he goes to them and he says, and I quote, that the Muslims are not going to retard the war effort. And we see that Muslims show up in disproportionate amounts. One of the sources mentions that Muslims are 30.5% of the entire Indian army, which is a much bigger percentage of their population. And, or you can see from the figure that I mentioned in the slide, is that when it comes to some of the major battles, for example, the battle in Burma or North Africa or in Italy, Muslims are actually 65% of that army. So even though the sources are not going to go into the division between Muslims or Hindu soldiers within those battles, those great accomplishments have a lot of Muslim soldiers within them. So the British Indian Army took part in some major battles within World War II. Within North Africa and the Middle East, they fought in Abyssinia. and they fought against, the Rommel's forces in Egypt, Libya, and North Africa. They were also involved in the liberation of Italy. And when it comes to Burma, they fought the Japanese in Imphal and Kohima. And then eventually, they were also part of the battles involved in recovering Burma from the Japanese. And they were involved in many fronts along World War II, including Malaya, Hong Kong, the Middle East, France, and even the British Indian Navy was involved in battles in the Atlantic Ocean. While these 2.5 million soldiers are fighting in World War II, you have a huge civilian effort also being made. Um, just in 1940, you have about 62 million pounds being spent on Indian products. So overall, Indian factories are working really, really hard. They're producing as much as Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa combined. And they're making stuff like, chemicals, paint, paper, jute, canvas, metal alloys, amongst other things. And when it comes to war supplies, they're actually making rifles and machine guns and uniforms and artillery, and even like the coating for tanks. And we know that when it comes to China facing the Japanese, they don't have many ports that are safe enough that will allow for them to get supplies from the Allies. And the closest port they have is Kolkata. And even that is very difficult because from Calcutta, you have to fly over the mountains to take aid to China.